Chrollo vs Kurapika. This fight has been destined to happen since the Yorknew City arc, as we were introduced to the Phantom Troupe and Kurapika took the plunge into darkness. The anime even kind of teased this fight when Kurapika almost ran into Chrollo in the cemetery building before the Zoldycks found him first. While Kurapika specifically designed his abilities to defeat the Phantom Troupe, Chrollo is the strongest member of the Phantom Troupe and is even said to be one of the greatest fighters in the world in the Hunter Encyclopedia databook. Does Kurapika's lust for vengeance have what it takes, or will Chrollo's experience and arsenal of abilities have the Scarlet Avenger beaten? The first thing to discuss is their physical abilities, martial arts, and weapons. Chrollo is pretty underrated in terms of strength, mainly because he was listed as number 7 on the Phantom Troupe arm wrestling rankings. The Phantom Troupe arm wrestling chart has always been questionable because we simply don't know a lot of the circumstances around it. Did the Phantom Troupe arm wrestle using Nen, or with just physical strength? Most people don't know this, but Nen in its most basic state, 10, doesn't actually increase strength, just makes your body more durable and protects from Nen attacks. Ren, which increases the aura around your body, is what increases strength. Most characters go into Ren during battle, so would the Phantom Troupe use Ren for a somewhat friendly arm wrestling competition? Hard to say. Eitan might be stronger than Chrollo in physical strength. It's possible Chrollo has more aura than they do and would be more powerful. This is supported by the actual feats in the manga as well. During the Chimera Ant arc, Finks and Benolanov fight Chimera Ant officers. Benolanov is one number behind Chrollo and Finks is second only to Uvogin. Benolanov hits a Chimera Ant with his spear ability and Finks uses a Nen enhanced punch. Togashi specifically went out of his way to draw a huge amount of aura around Finks' hand when he attacked the Chimera Ant, and after this, Finks decided it's best to use his Nen ability rather than just a stronger normal punch. These are officer Chimera Ants, beneath Zazan, meaning they are the same class of ant as Ramot, Bat, Owl, and even Snake. They are also weaker than base Zazan, a squadron leader Chimera Ant who has a lower aura stat than Chrollo in the databooks. Chrollo can even swap hands with Zeno and Silva Zoldyck, who thought a leader ant like Chitu was nothing, and even Base Gon and Killua can one-shot officer ants without using their Nen abilities. See why it can be a little shaky? It's also very possible Chrollo trained since his arm wrestling ranking, as Silva Zoldyck himself noted that Chrollo had improved significantly since their last bout, and we don't know how long ago Chrollo arm wrestled the other members or how much he even tried. Due to these reasons, I don't think the arm wrestling rankings are a hard limitation for Chrollo. As I said, Chrollo is pretty underrated. Chrollo was able to block numerous blows from Zeno and Silva Zoldyck attacking him at the same time. Zeno's Aura Blast does no damage and neither do the punches from Silva that one-shot Chitu. While Chrollo did admit he doesn't have the defenses to block Zeno's Gyo Enhanced Strike, Gyo is the act of focusing a ton of aura into one point, and while Zeno may be very powerful with his attack, he'd also leave himself vulnerable by doing so. Chrollo would be taking a big risk by using his own Gyo to protect himself, and as Zeno attacked a different part of his body, doing even more damage. Which Bisky told Gon and Killua in the Greed Island arc. Even after this, Chrollo tanks Zeno punching him a ton of times and even getting bit by Zeno's Dragon Lance. Chrollo is also super hyped up in the databooks as he has a higher strength than most Chimera Ant squadron leaders such as Zazan, Chitu, and Leol. So Chrollo is a beast, but what about Kurapika? During the fight with Uvogin, the physically strongest Phantom Troupe member gets mad and attacks Kurapika with half his strength. Kurapika can effortlessly ragdoll half-power Uvogin, and Uvogin has to go full power in order to counter him. This is impressive because the first time Uvogin attacked Kurapika, he only used 20% of his strength, and Uvogin said the only people who should be able to block that punch are Master Enhancers, yet Kurapika shrugged it off. Bullying half-power Uvogin is also good, seeing as Chrollo himself thinks Uvogin is completely unbeatable in combat without special hacks abilities like manipulation. It's impossible to give an exact number, but Kurapika would probably be around 60 to 70% the power of Uvogin for bullying him at 50%, while still obviously being much weaker than full power Uvogin. Being around 60 to 70% of the strength of somebody Chrollo thinks is unbeatable in physical strength is a good look for Kurapika. especially if you take that statement about 20% Uvogen seriously. Considering Chrollo is not a Master Enhancer, and Uvogen said only Master Enhancers can block him at 20%, Kurapika might even be multiple times stronger than Chrollo in strength. Kurapika can even react to full power Uvogen when he catches him off guard, which is a pretty insane reaction feat. Kurapika with Emperor Time is more physically adept than Chrollo, and I think that's pretty clear. Chrollo defenders may bring up the fact that Kurapika's strength stats in the databooks are lower than Chrollo's, but these stats could just be for base Kurapika, not amped by Emperor Time, which maximizes his abilities as an enhancer. That said, strength isn't everything. In terms of martial arts, Chrollo does have a long combat record, being a floor master at the Heaven's Arena Tower, and impressing the Zoldycks with his assassin skills. Kurapika is also highly skilled. Even back in the Hunter exams, Kurapika carried many weapons, mainly leading with a pair of wooden swords, and managed to bloody Hisoka in an off-screen fight where Hisoka presumably held back, but it's still impressive as Hisoka was also a Heaven's Arena floor master like Chrollo. Kurapika could outmaneuver and tag Uvogen several times, a seasoned street brawler and the main fighter in the entire troop. Chrollo's poison knife might be effective on Kurapika, who has no poison resistance, but Kurapika can also use his chains to parry Chrollo at mid to long range, the same way he used the dowsing chain to precisely catch bullets. Even if you want to give Chrollo the edge in terms of pure martial arts, I think Kurapika's strength advantage and use of weapons make him a more threatening opponent, at least when we aren't counting Nen abilities. Both these characters' true strength lies in their abilities, Skill Hunter, which steals powers, and Kurapika's Variety of Change, each with their own unique ability. For this video, I'll be considering current Kurapika with all his abilities, and for Chrollo, I'll be considering all the abilities he displayed in the Yorknew arc, and his fight with Hisoka, or a hypothetical Prime Chrollo. Chrollo himself said that Hisoka made him get more abilities than ever before for a single battle, so it's safe to say this is probably the strongest Chrollo we've ever seen. Location matters a lot for this fight. If the two fight in a location with a lot of civilians like the Black Whale or Heaven's Arena, Chrollo can employ the same tactics he used on Hisoka, surrounding him with an army of self-destructive puppets that even put Hisoka on the ropes. While Kurapika is powerful, I'm not going to sit here and claim he's going to get through that all unscathed, but he doesn't really have to. Kurapika has tools that Hisoka didn't that would allow him to get through this a lot better. The reason Chrollo could successfully make an army of puppets was because he would sneak around the crowd while disguising himself as other people. The dowsing chain ability lets him tell if people are lying, but can also point to where he wants to go on a map. When looking for Neon, Kurapika used the dowsing chain on a map and it directed him towards where she was. Emperor Time is known to amp the powers of the dowsing chain, so I don't think it's that much of a stretch that if Kurapika wanted to find Chrollo, the dowsing chain would point towards his location, even if he's disguised as another person. Kurapika can also use the Holy Chain's healing ability to circumvent some of the damage he'd sustained from exploding puppets. These bombs could blow Hisoka's fingers off and damage his hands, so I'm not sure if Kurapika can heal missing fingers, but it would at least help with a bit of the damage. Of course, if they are fighting in an area with few people, like the hallways of Tier 1 or in the canyon where he fought Uvogen, Chrollo loses this advantage completely, which makes Gallery Fake, Order Stamp, and Convert Hands all completely useless. Black Voice was the ability he borrowed from Shalnark, a manipulator ability that can control someone if he just stabs them with a needle. This could work on Kurapika, but Kurapika can also parry the needle away the same way he would with Chrollo's poison knife. Fun Cloth is a cloth that shrinks whoever gets caught inside of it, sealing them away and rendering them unable to fight back, as seen with Nobunaga. The indoor fish don't really have any feats other than the fact that Chrollo used them to beat an assassin Kurapika considered somewhat impressive, but as the name implies, they only work indoors, so this also depends on the location of the battle. Chrollo's teleportation ability is very vague in its function and conditions, but would at the very least give Chrollo the chance to mix Kurapika up a bit Boogie Woogie style. But I don't think we know enough about it to say it would be a huge game changer. It kinda just gives Chrollo some added utility. He never considered using it on Hisoka or the Zoldyck assassins, so I don't know how much it would actually help. On to Kurapika's abilities, and they are pretty straightforward. Each of Kurapika's chains have a different ability, and we already went over the dowsing chain and the healing chain. Kurapika's main weapons are the Chain Jail and Judgment Chain. If Chrollo ever gets caught by one of these abilities, he just loses, as Chain Jail will force Chrollo into Zetsu, and Judgment Chain will allow Kurapika to impose whatever conditions he desires. He already used this to make it impossible for Chrollo to use Nen, so he should be able to do it again. According to Kurapika, Chain Jail was the first move he uses when fighting the troupe, which makes me believe it's probably faster between those two abilities, or it's just better in combat. Maybe Judgment Chain only works on opponents who are already incapacitated or willingly accepting. Regardless, these are both instant wins, so Chrollo has to avoid him, which he probably can, seeing as Uvogin was able to. While Uvogin is physically superior, Chrollo should be relative in terms of speed. The Hunter Encyclopedia has stated that Chrollo's overall combat ability is the greatest in the troupe, and that when the troupe is in danger, Chrollo joins the battlefield and turns the tide. Chrollo would need to be close to him in speed at least in order to make use of his abilities, so he should be able to avoid Chain Jail as well. Chrollo can also use Fun Cloth to parry Kurapika's attacks the same way he did to Xenozoldyck. He can even dodge Xenozoldyck while keeping an eye on Silva, which convinces Silva that Chrollo really is a serious threat. Against Uvogin, Kurapika used Een on his chains to fool Uvogin by enraging him and making him forget about the chains, but I don't really think this would work on Chrollo. Chrollo isn't prone to outrage and is a very level-headed thinker, even if facing the one who killed Uvogin, as he originally planned on recruiting Kurapika until he found out he was the Kurta Clan Avenger. It wouldn't be easy for Kurapika to trick him like this, especially seeing as Hisoka, somebody Chrollo has fought and thoroughly analyzed, almost always uses Een on his bungee gum, so Chrollo was probably familiar with the trick as well. Kurapika does have one more chain in the manga, so skip to this timestamp if you want to avoid all spoilers. In the manga, Kurapika creates a new ability called Steel Chain, which if it hits his opponent lets him drain them of their Nen and use their ability. Once he takes their ability, they can no longer use this ability and can't use Nen either, meaning he has a third chain that if it lands, Kurapika would be able to put Chrollo in Zetsu and instantly win. When it comes to intelligence, both are genius level strategists in battle, as seen in basically all their fights. However, most of Kurapika's genius can be seen in social manipulation and analysis, not as much in combat. Chrollo is also a genius level in these regards, but shows his battle IQ in the fights with Hisoka as well as the fact that while Xenozoldyck was reading his moves, Chrollo could also read Zeno like a book in response. Both have a 4 out of 5 intelligence stat in the data book, but Chrollo has a higher ingenuity stat. I do think Chrollo is probably a bit smarter, but like I said, both are geniuses. The thing is, both Chrollo and Kurapika have abilities that can one-shot the other, and they both have counters to one another. Chrollo's Knife, Black Voice, Fun Cloth, Kurapika's Chain Jail, Judgment Chain, and Steel Chain. Any one of these abilities could defeat the other fighter in one attack, meaning this fight isn't a war of attrition like Chrollo vs Hisoka, but a chess match, each trying to secure an opening to land the finishing blow. Kurapika has a pretty significant strength advantage and a huge range advantage with his chains, since Chrollo can only fight in close combat, while Chrollo has the edge in versatility and a very slight edge in intelligence. Combat skill could go either way, but Kurapika would probably win hand to hand on pure strength alone. Honestly, both Kurapika and Chrollo have different ways of beating each other, and I think if they fought 100 times, each result would be very different. This fight could go a lot of different ways and would be very difficult no matter what. But of course, I do have my answer. While I did give Chrollo the slight edge in intelligence and he has far more Nen abilities at his disposal, I do believe Kurapika overall would win most of the time. He's much stronger and using his chains would make it very difficult for Chrollo to ever land the finishing blow. All of Chrollo's abilities force him to get close, while Kurapika can use Chain Jail from a distance while using his other chains to block Chrollo's attacks. If Chrollo ever does manage to damage Kurapika, he's able to heal with the Holy Chain, while any damage Chrollo takes will only slow him down more. The fact that all of Kurapika's abilities are chains will also make it confusing for Chrollo, who will be trying to analyze Kurapika's abilities. making it easier for Kurapika to trick Chrollo, maybe make him think one chain is the wrong chain, or use Een on Judgment Chain while Chrollo was trying to avoid chain jail, then hit Chrollo when he's not expecting it. While Chrollo on paper does have more abilities to work with, more pieces on the board as you will, Chrollo can only use 1 or 2 abilities at a time, and if he's using 2 he needs to hold the banded secret book open, and if he doesn't want to hold the book he needs to use the bookmark, meaning he can only use 1 ability at a time. Kurapika on the other hand has all 5 chains without needing to change the page of a book. And let's just be honest for a minute, I'm giving Chrollo a big benefit. Chrollo doesn't get to keep all his abilities forever. Whenever someone whose ability he stole passes away, he loses that ability with one exception. While Chrollo had teleportation and Fun Cloth in Yorknew, what if he doesn't have those anymore in the current arc? And what if Chrollo didn't have Sun and Moon or Order Stamp during Yorknew because he got those abilities to fight Hisoka? I analyzed an all abilities Chrollo for this video, but that's not how it would go down if they actually fought. The Chrollo we saw fight Hisoka was insanely prepped out and wouldn't usually have all those abilities, meaning Kurapika would have an even better chance against Chrollo than I explained in this video. It's a very close fight and could go either way, but I do think Kurapika wins most of the time.